Morning. I read a lot of articles, see a lot of stuff, peruse a lot of papers and online blogs. A lot of what I read is about dating and about people and relationships and bettering yourself and doing all sorts of different things. Today I found one, and it's interesting to read these articles because these articles are all about people and relationships and how people interact with one another. And it's good to actually read these articles because this is what other people are reading, and it becomes what other people are going to expect from you. So if you know what to expect, it kind of becomes a snowball. I'm not saying to change the way you're doing things necessarily, but it's just good to know. This article is called 11 Things That Are Supposed to Happen on Real Dates That Don't Anymore. I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm just going to talk about a couple different things in it. But the first paragraph is interesting. He says, I don't like dating, mostly because no one seems to understand what dating is supposed to be anymore. These days, what gets labeled as a date is really just an unnecessary, extravagant booty call. Listen, there's nothing wrong at all wrong with just having sex. I'm all for it, but if you're going to date, then actually date. You should be capable of differentiating the two and approaching the two different scenarios differently. The problem is that most of us are so used to pseudo-dating in order to get off that when we find ourselves on what ought to be an actual date, we don't know how to act. And I see that all the time these days. People just don't know how to act anymore. People don't know how to act like a gentleman, treat women with respect. And vice versa. A lot of women don't know how to act around men anymore. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm far from it. But it is interesting when you watch people. And I'd like to watch people. I'm a people watcher. So, here's a couple things this guy recommends. Prior to a date, you're supposed to feel nervous, especially if it's a first date. And basically the premise of what he's saying here, and it makes sense, if you're not nervous, then why are you even going on this date? We don't go on dates because we find someone who truly catches our interest. We go on dates because it's an activity that fills some time. You know what? That is a big problem. So many people just go on dates to date. You got your Tinders, your Match, all these things. People are so worried about swiping right and swiping left that they stop actually having a date and getting to know this other person. It's just they keep wading through all these people to try and find that one that they probably already passed that one and swiped left on her if they even so it's a shame. This guy says if you're really that bored, you could probably find more productive things to do than force something that you already have little to no interest in. Number 2, he says you're supposed to spend too much time getting ready. And he says that he has a theory about why so many relationships fail. It's because in its simplest form, he believes they fail because both partners stop trying to impress the other. In other words, people stop trying to put the work in to make it work. They get too comfortable and feel that going that extra mile has no value. He says we already have our prize, so why continue pursuing it? It's unfortunate. So many people stop trying and stop working towards, putting the effort in, putting the work in. It's not easy. And this is something that I've found and experienced. You can always lose the person you love. Just because you have them now doesn't mean you'll have them tomorrow. Life's short. I always say life's short, get out and live life. Well, it's the same with love. You should impress them every chance you get because you love them and believe they deserve to be impressed. If this is your first date together and you feel no urge to put in a little extra effort, then I can tell you right now that it won't go anywhere. Number 3, pick you up at your place at 7. He says in the suburban and rural areas, people still pick up each other and, to go on a date. But in urban settings, in town, People just meet at a restaurant. I don't remember the last time I went and picked up someone for a date. So part of that is probably because we meet on all the dating apps, and they say, well, I'll just meet you here or meet you there, rather than just pick her up. Whatever happened to flowers? It's true. Used to be a day when you always brought flowers on a date. He says a lot of that has to do with the fact that you go to restaurants, it'll be kind of awkward, might be a little awkward bringing her flowers. He said women love flowers. It's true, they do. Women love flowers. I like to ask what kind of flowers. Not all women love roses. A lot of women love lilies or some other form of flower. And if she doesn't like flowers, bring her chocolates. He says if you don't like either, find another woman. You're dating the devil. He also, the next thing he talks about is dinner. Not coffee, not drinks, not watching a movie at his place. He says it's a date. You're not sitting next to each other watching a movie. He said the whole purpose of the date is that you should be getting to know each other. And the best way to get to know each other is on a date at dinner, not drinking. He says, sure, it's fine to have a few drinks at dinner. It's going to loosen you up, make you a little bit more relaxed, 1 or 2 drinks, a glass of wine. But he said, don't get smashed. That is behavior that should never happen on a date, especially a first date. He says the only times you ever see that happening are when sex is going to come into play on the first date, in which case it really isn't a first date. You're supposed to have stimulating conversations. Not all dates will lead to stimulating conversations, but if you're dating the right person, they will. If you're constantly concerned about the other person and what they're doing and the conversation and the weather and how about them met, you're probably on a date with the wrong person, and that will be the first and your last date with that person. Conversation is important. What else? He should walk you and take you home, or take you home. That's what a gentleman does. And if you guys met at a restaurant, he should walk you to your car. It says chances are it's already late. Believe it or not, streets can get dangerous for women. That any gentleman should walk a woman to her car. He says if you're already interested in her, show her that you care for her. It's these little things that will win her over, not the size of your wallet. Oh, and speaking of wallet, he also says that on the first date, the guy should definitely pick up the tab. He says after that, it's up to you. He says usually it should be on a rotating basis. And women that expect you to pick up the check every time, he says, aren't necessarily in it for you. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, and I've had heated discussions with buddies about that, playing both sides of the coin. But on the first date, definitely pick up the check. It says you're not supposed to sleep together on the first date. This is the whole point to the first date, is getting to know each other. It helps to build up tension and yearning, both necessary for the manifestation of romantic love. And this is the one that I believe in, and I've had people tell me otherwise. Call her the next day. Definitely call her. He quotes somebody saying, I'll talk to her in a few days just so that she doesn't think I'm that into her. Well, why wouldn't you want someone to be into you, or her to think you're into you? You went on a date with her. You're interested in her. Tell her you're interested. Call her the next day. I don't believe in these kind of games. He doesn't either. He mentions that. So, yeah. The date went well. You're thinking about her the next morning with a smile on your face. Text her, email her, call her. Let her know you had a great time and that she's still on your mind. And he says if that doesn't tickle her fancy, find a better woman. So that's it with this article. I'll put a link to it down below. It's in Elite Daily, and it's dating advice. Thank you for joining me on this brief discussion as I get more and more comfortable behind the camera. So, hope y'all are having a great day. Get out, live life. And what's my quote? It's right here. The challenge is we all want to be with someone that makes us happy, when what we need to do is be someone who makes us happy.